Okay, so you have your clutch all back together, and it's time to determine what the correct pushrod length will be. And it's a pretty straightforward process. You've got a couple of marks on the case. You can't see them right now. There's a couple of marks on the case right here, and you want that lever arm on your clutch cover to center up between those two marks when all of the slack is taken out of the release mechanism. All the free play is removed. Let's get a look at those marks. Hopefully I can do this so you guys will be able to see the marks in question. Right there. Those two marks right there. Okay? So let's start by seeing what length pushrod we have in here currently, and we'll start from there. Pushrods come in three lengths: 44.5, 45.5, and 46.5 millimeters. So we're going to measure this pushrod, and this is a 45.5. Okay, I'm sorry, a 46.5 millimeters. Okay, so it's the longest pushrod. We'll put that in there. We've got the clutch cover that I've been running on this motorcycle. It's got the sneezy cam in it. There's not a lot of free play in here, almost no lost motion. I should say lost motion, not free play. Okay. When you put these covers on, make sure you hold this hook in the upright position. If you put it on with this in this position here, then you can't get it flipped back over to hook the cable. Okay? So make sure that your hook is in the upright position. Hold it in that position as you install the clutch cover. For this check, we're just going to put 4 bolts in. The long bolts go where the dowels are at, right here in this hole. And this hole right here. We're not going to hook the cable up. We don't want it obstructing our vision. We want to be able to see. Sharp bolts go in all the other holes. I'm only going to put 4 bolts in to hold all this together. One of the reasons why I like the genuine Suzuki clutch cover gasket is because it's the correct thickness, 15 thousandths of an inch, and it holds that thickness really nicely. It doesn't fall apart like a sheet gasket, a composite gasket, like that new non-asbestos material. And it's just a great gasket. You can use it over and over and over again. So you can see we got a little movement in the release arm on the clutch cover, but not much. I'm going to say, based on the way it feels, about all I'm getting there is what it takes to remove all of the lost motion in the sneezy cam, which isn't much, and maybe there's just a teeny weeny bit of clearance between the cam and the pushrod. It seems way too tight. We'll see where this lever arm falls on these marks. So once again, you just want the crescent wrench to take the weight of the crescent wrench to take all of the free play out of the release mechanism inside. Let's get a look and see what we got. Wow, this is tough. Where is it falling? Well, it's clearly too low. The lever arm is not between the two marks. It's too low. Okay, that's a bad condition. That's the condition, type of condition you don't want, because that condition will cause the clutch to slip. Okay, especially once the clutch starts to wear just a little bit. There's not much grace in that system, and pretty soon the release mechanism is going to be holding the clutch disengaged, okay? Hopefully this is aligned pretty good so you can see what I'm doing. So we know that's too low. We need a shorter push rod. Let's get this clutch cover back off real quick. Okay. We'll take this push rod out. See, we got a shorter one here. I believe we do. Okay, this is a 45.5 millimeter push rod, so it's 1 millimeter shorter. Let's give you an idea what a 1 millimeter will do, what kind of change it will make. Once again, you don't want this in the down position. You want to hold it up with your finger, otherwise it'll get caught in there and you won't be able to flip it over to get the cable hooked onto it. And the cover goes on, okay? Long bolts in these holes. These are the holes with the dowels, here and here. Here and here for shorter bolts. And of course you want to snug it up to do these checks, make sure that everything's up hard, otherwise you'll get an erroneous reading. Okay, now you can see already we got a little more movement there now. Stick our crescent wrench on here and just taking the weight of the assembly up, the weight of the wrench, taking all the play up in the assembly. Let's see where the marks lie now in relation to the arm. Does the arm line up with the marks? How is it looking? Whoa, I'd say that's just about dead nuts, right in the middle of the two marks, right where we want it. Okay, so you get the idea? If we were to put a shorter push rod yet, put the 44.5 in, this thing would end up too high. So it's just right. Long push rods make the lever arm situated low in relation to the marks on the case. Shorter push rods raise it up. You don't want to push on the wrench, you just want the weight of the wrench to do the work for you, to take the slack out of the release mechanism, all the free play out of it. Okay, so that means that this thing can be made up permanently. We'll assume that we've checked the torque on the primary drive gear nut, and we've checked the torque on the balance shaft bolt, and I already took the paper towels out, so we don't have to worry about those. You got to get this cable hooked up, and the way you do that is you break these bolts loose. And you back them off just a little bit. When you do that, it's going to allow you to raise the lever arm up a little higher. Okay, see how much higher I can raise the lever arm now? Just get a hold of the cable and hook it. Okay, now the cable's hooked up. Works pretty good. The little rubber boot came off. There we go. Then you can run those bolts back in. All four of those are back in there nice and snug. Three of the sharp bolts have sealing washers on them. Okay? See that sealing washer right there on that bolt? 3 of them are like that. One goes right here underneath that forward 6mm stud on the cylinder. One goes right here, the first hole above the lever arm. And one goes right over here. You can't really see it, but it's right in this location here. Okay? Right even with the feed passage. We'll run these in. Get all of the rest of the bolts in, and then we'll adjust the cable slack using the adjuster up on the perch on the handlebar lever. Hopefully I don't waste too much time putting all these bolts in. While I'm doing this, we can talk about the clutch springs a little bit again. As I mentioned, the stock release cams are failure prone. They're made out of powdered metal. They're very brittle and they fracture quite easily. And so there's a couple things you absolutely don't want to do. You don't want to get all of this release mechanism, the cable, the lever adjustment, the push rod. You don't want to get all of that stuff so stinking tight that you over travel the clutch. Because if you over travel the clutch, it has hard stops built into the clutch basket, the primary driven gear, and it'll hit those hard stops, and more than likely you'll break the release cam. The other problem is if you got slipping clutch and you think you're going to fix it by putting in stiff springs, the stock release cam really can't hack it. May last for a while. Nobody can really predict when the things are going to break. But you end up with something that looks like this. It just snaps. You know, it was like that, and then it just breaks off, and it's very hard, brittle material, and you don't want this falling apart and running through your rotating gears. So unless you got a sneezy cam, stay away from stronger springs, stay away from extra plates, stay away from putting in an extra steel to add more compression to the springs, more preload. All that stuff can end up killing your release cam. Let's take a look at this clutch lever free play now. So here's the clutch lever. Moves pretty good, but you can see it has way too much free play. You only want about 1/8 of an inch here. So I can move it this far before I start feeling resistance. That's about 1/4 of an inch or so. So you just take your adjuster, back it out until this lever starts to show resistance, all the slack taken out of the system at about 1/8 of an inch. About 1/8 of an inch gap right there. Okay, That will work out really good. It feels good. The pull is nice. About 1/8 of an inch. That's all there is to it. You're ready to rock and roll.